Welcome again to Wisdom Wednesday number 22. And today's topic is, you are the knower of yourself. And we have a question from a questioner, and the question is, I want to know and learn more about myself. But recently, when I went and did some research, I researched where to go, who to go to, what to see, and various things. And I'm becoming overwhelmed and mesmerized by all the choices out there in the world. So I'm wondering, where do I go? What's the best choice for me personally? And how do I choose? Okay, well, your question is, I think probably 9.99% of the population who's starting to walk a spiritual journey is asking these kinds of questions. So I'll say this, that you want to learn about yourself. What you really want is you want to know who you are in actuality. So I'm not going to be able to tell you where to go and what to do and who to see, but I can tell you about who you are. And I can tell you that it is you that you want to know. So you'll probably wonder, should I go to India? Should I go to Peru? Should I go to Tibet or Nepal? Or what kind of energy work should I do? Should I do meditation? Should I do yoga? Should I do energy work? Is it shamanism? Is it Reiki? Is it which teacher is the best? Yeah, I know. It's just too much to choose from. So I'd like to simplify it for you today. Before you go out there into the world and research, remember that there is something that you need to know. And that is, you need to know yourself. And who are you really? So I'm going to divide it into 3 parts. So when you are wanting to know who you are, there is an I, and that's the subject, that's the noun. And then there is the object, the thing that you want to know. And then there is the process of knowing. So there's a faculty in which you get to know that object. So the question is now, what do you want to know? Do you want to know your physical body? Do you want to know your emotional body? Do you want to know your mental body? Do you want to know your essential self? That's the question. So you are, in actuality, one. You are everything. But the everything is the part that we need to talk about, because you are sentience, you are consciousness, you are light, you are the most sentient part of everything that you are. So you are everything. You can say, well, I'm the house over there, I'm the dog on the street, I'm my neighbor, and if I sort of bring everything down to an energy level, I'm everything. But do you know that you're everything and everyone? So we're going to talk about the knower, and we're going to divide the knower into all these different parts so that you can understand that there is a very, very high sentient part of yourself that you want to know. But when we first start out, we want to know something about myself. So my big whole universal self is now divided into sentient and insentient. Sentient meaning conscious, aware, alive, has the most life in it, the most light in it. And then there's the insentient, which is the grosser, the more sort of earthy, unconscious part of ourself. Ultimately, we want a path that will take us to union with the highest part of ourself, which is the most sentient. And we call that the knower. In yoga philosophy, we call it the knower. The knower, the witness, the watcher, the experiencer, the one who knows. So ultimately, you want to unite with the knower, the most sentient part of yourself. It's not going to be satisfying enough for you to know just about your leg, or just about your emotions, or just about your mind. You want to know the essence, the root of who you are. So when you go out there into the world and start looking for who should I go, you want the best. You want the highest. That's what you want. So we're going to break it down. So say for instance, I'm the subject, and there's a rose. Let's say there's a rose. I don't have a rose, but just say there's a rose. And I will know the rose, which is more insentient than I am, and I know the rose through my senses. So my senses are more insentient to the knower part of me. The mind and the senses know the rose. The rose is the object. Now let's say the knower is going to be a little bit more sentient. The object, let's say I have a pain in my elbow. So the elbow is a part of my body, and that's a little bit more sentient or insentient, which is a little bit grosser, more elemental than the one who's knowing my elbow. So the knower here is knowing the sensation through my body. This is the object. So do I want to only know this? It's probably not enough. I'm not going to get uplifted enough. Let's go on to the emotional body. Let's say I feel a lot of anger. Well, the anger is the object that you are watching and observing. So there has to be a part of you that is more brighter, more conscious, more alive, more alert than the anger that at first I was so mixed with that I was my anger. But when I'm discerning or separating from my anger, I start to realize that there's another part of me that is brighter and less identified with the anger. And that's the knower of my anger. And we might put that in the category of your I, your ego. Your ego knows that there's anger on an emotional level. So the knower is in the form of the ego now. Before it was in the form of the mind and the senses, now it's in the form of the ego. And let's say now your object becomes the watching the patterns of your mind. Let's say you're watching a craving and you're repeating this pattern every time you see such and such object, or whenever you feel empty inside, you crave ice cream or something. And it's like, oh, I want to feel that I don't want to feel lonely. So you're following a pattern of how you feel inside. So then that can be like a mental pattern or an emotional pattern or feeling pattern. But there's something that is a little bit more brighter, more intelligent, more aware, more conscious than your patterns. A pattern is just a pattern. It has some sentience, but there's a more insentience. It's a little heavier. It's a more unconscious. But there's a part that's more conscious. So you are the conscious one looking and exploring, studying the more unconscious part of who you are, of the whole being. And it continues. Let's say you're doing a meditation technique and you're studying, let's say you're watching your breath. The breath is a part of everything that you are, but it's going to be, as an object, it's going to be less sentient than you. You're the knower of the breath. You are watching your breath. So the object is a little bit less bright than who you are seeing it. So now your seer is not identified as an ego, but is still there, and there's an awareness. I don't know what to call that knower, but it's a knower of the breath. So you're less and less identified as an ego knowing, but there's a knower. And we can just continue. Your knower can get subtler and subtler and subtler as the object of the part of yourself that you're studying will get subtler and subtler and subtler. So now we're going to keep going in the meditation practice. Your object gets subtler and subtler. So eventually you're going to get to a place where they're equal. You, the knower, which is the vast, expansive, largest, biggest knower, which is the universal knower, is wanting to know the vast, universal knower. So I am I. The knower is knowing the knower. You are that vastness. You want to know your vastness. Nothing less. When that happens, that's called enlightenment. That's called unity consciousness. There's no grading anymore. There's no separation anymore. There's no less sentient and more sentient, more conscious and less conscious. Everything is 100% conscious, and that everything is you. That's it for Wisdom Wednesday number 22, and I'll see you next Wednesday for Wisdom Wednesday number 23. Okay, bye for now.